This is a channel that I created in order to post content that analyzes Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West. Yes, I'm a big Ye fan. I'm like definitely stan status, and I love everything he does. He's my favorite artist of all time. But the idea of the channel isn't just to glaze Kanye for the free ski. The idea is I'm consider myself very good at research and very well versed in Kanye as well. And I've watched his videos, his interviews, especially over and over and over again. And I feel like I'm not some type of expert on Ye. I mean, he's an expert of himself. But in terms of like popular opinion and what I usually hear, like in terms of takes around like Ye, it sounds the type of way, but I have a much better understanding even than like other stans that I've met. Because when I see a lot of Kanye stans online, a lot of the time they're stans because of the music, not really his like opinions in his interviews. But the interviews are really where I just like fell in love with the man's thinking. Like, I think he expresses the same things in his music, and it has his like ability to speak to people as well. But there's something about his like different perspective in his way of talking, and his way of like in his perspective on the world, and also like art, but also like action, also like philanthropy, like contributing to the world. Like, there's honestly so much that I've gotten from like Kanye's mentality that I don't know. I feel like it's not my responsibility, but I say it's within my ability to kind of take all the content of Kanye out there, like his interviews and all that different stuff, and show how they're like common threads and themes that are really worth listening to. Because I love about Kanye is his ability to go against the grain, but in part of that process, he naturally just says things in a way that can be taken out of context and can be like dramatized in a way that the genius of it just gets taken out. And I see this especially when he has like those memeable quotes. Like a good example is the Lady Gaga one, like the one where he's like, I like some of Lady Gaga's songs. What does she know about cameras? Like, out of context, it's just a funny quote. But within context, he's really saying something deep about how a lot of artists like Lady Gaga or like Kanye West or like Justin Bieber, they're geniuses in their own right, and that's how they get to that position where they're able to like have a name for themselves. But at the same time, the way that the industry treats them, or like other industries treat them, is just as a celebrity. They're really just a commodity, and really they're just something to be consumed. But they're not something to be respected and treated like with the same respect you would give to Steve Jobs or like a head of a company.
I remember when I was dropping William Morris, right? And then Sarah Newkirk at that time said, before you drop them, go meet with Ari Emanuel. And I sat with him and said, Ari, I'm an inventor. And he goes on to tell me about the way it works. And what he said is, you are a celebrity. So basically what's going to happen is there's product here. And this is where you end up, right here. If you can communicate this product, you can make money off the product. Because look at Gaga. She's the creative director of Polaroid. I like some of the Gaga songs. What the fuck does she know about cameras? So it becomes all of this thing where all of the musicians try to get more money by promoting other products, right? So you'll say, hey, you know what? I've got this water, and we've got this red version. We've got a red bottle, and we got a David Beckham version here. Then we got a blue version. So my opinion is no more than the patina on top of it. When I understand the reason from my core of why something should work all the way through.
Mm-hmm. And so in this video, the main focus is talking about how context really does matter when it comes to Kanye, his like ideas, his beliefs. And I want to talk about this because no other artist that I've seen and watched has demonstrated to me as much as Kanye that context matters, and also like people often do not really, it's not that they don't care about context, but they won't necessarily go to great lengths to figure out what the context is if you don't easily provide it. One of the best examples I could think of right now is a slavery was a choice comment. Like, that was a statement where Kanye gave a lot of context during the interview on TMZ. He gave context afterwards on social media, but still people heard that like 2-minute clip or soundbite, and they interpreted what he said as like essentially how they wanted to hear it, which was in a negative way. And one thing I've heard people say before is like, well, Kanye's really not that great at articulating what he's saying, but like there's truth under what he's saying. And I agree with that for a while, but then it got to a point where I was like, it's not even just that he actually is really trying to like articulate things well, because he knows in the past they've like been misinterpreted. It's really honestly more so the fact that people really have their preconceived notions of Kanye, and also like certain opinions like racism, government, whatever. They have these certain almost like pre-programmed ideas, so that it's not that he articulated it in such a poor way. It's more so this was already something was already in the back of someone's head or at the front of someone's head or mind, and as a result, people just heard what they wanted to hear. And slavery was a choice quote was a great example of that, because he said, like, what was it 400 years? Like y'all were just slaves and y'all didn't do nothing. Like that sounds like a choice to me. But we're in the year of 2025. I think he said that in like 2018. So, but whatever. 400 years before that would be the 1600s. So if he's saying that there's been 400 years of slavery for black people, that would be from the 1600s to 2000s, which I might be wrong about this, but slavery did not last that long. And honestly, it helps to watch the rest of the interview, because he pretty clearly explains that he's talking about mental slavery, not like actual slavery. But what I'm saying is you don't even necessarily need to hear that part of the interview, because if you do the math, 400 years, like he could not be talking about slavery in like the traditional sense.
Can I go back to something you just said? Because I don't want to let it pass. You said that slavery was around for 400 years. At a point, it becomes a choice.
Yeah, right now we're choosing to be enslaved. We're like, okay, so Ebro, I FaceTime him, and I'm there with Candace, right? And Ebro starts bringing up his version of facts, right? And Candace has facts. She's researched, right? Candace Owens has facts. She's researched. And then Candace just pulls out her Jedi lightsaber and just, chops Ebro's head off with facts. Then Ebro FaceTimes me the next day, and he's talking about the scoop and poop. He wants to talk about music now. I said, yo, you gonna have Candace on your show? He's like, nah, I'm not. She's mean. So you're gonna stifle her voice, Ebro. You're choosing to enslave people's minds. You're choosing to not let the truth be free.
And so after a certain point, it's kind of like, okay, is it Kanye's fault that people aren't understanding him, or is it like the average audience's problem because they don't have the intelligence or the care to really try to understand? And part of it in certain circumstances is, I get it. Not everyone's going to do the research or like get try to figure out the context afterwards. Oh, okay, he's posting swastikas, he's talking about Nazi stuff. It's not, I got a 9-to-5 job. I'm not going to get off work and then do all my research on, okay, he's saying anti-Semitic stuff in the Drink Champs interview, when it's 3 hours long. And many people just don't have time to like double check. But the problem is, Kanye also has a like clear reputation of what he's saying in the moment is like sound extreme. And I think part of why I always know that he's like coming from a place of genius is because I've watched him so closely, and by the time the slavery was a choice thing happened in like 2019 and 2018, whatever, I had already been a Kanye fan for a minute, so I had been used to like the rants, like the type of mentality that ended up like with him doing like the White Lives Matter type stuff. And so I kind of understand why people are like, how could he post a swastika? But when you're coming from the context, or my context, of watching that full TMZ interview with the slavery as a choice, because literally in the full interview, he says, I don't believe in symbolism. I don't believe that, okay, just because there's a swastika, that has to represent the Nazi regime. I don't believe that, you just say an example that he didn't say, but I don't believe that just because there's, these two triangles, one upright and one down, that has to represent the Star of David. And then he applies that to people as well, of course. So Hitler doesn't have to be a symbol of hate. He doesn't have to only represent hatred. Like there's infinite facets of any person. And so I understand in this like culture where we've popularized the idea of Hitler being the Antichrist, when there have been definitely people who have worse morals than Hitler in the world. But for whatever reason, he is normalized as like there is nobody worse than Hitler. Oh, but you cannot say you love Hitler. And then you have Ye, who comes out and says, no, I love Hitler. Like, everyone has redeemable qualities, essentially. Like, that's essentially what he said on the Alex Jones podcast. He says, like, with Lex Friedman. The reason I care so much about his message being understood is because it's a very powerful stance to have. In that same TMZ interview with Slavery Was a Choice, he was saying, I love the surgeon who, like, misoperated on my mom, and, like, that resulted in her death. And that's not to say I love the fact that my mom died. That's to say I love everyone regardless.
You tell us what the root of all of this is. What are we talking about? Are we talking about free thought, free love? What is it?
It's free love. It's the spirit. You know, you had, in the office, you had Tupac and John Lennon on the wall. I don't want to be the third one, but I'm willing to be the third one for free love on that wall. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
If I say I love Dr. Jan Adams that performed surgery, my mother's final surgery, people don't want to accept forgiveness and love. Like even Harvey, you said you can't love everyone when we talked about the Jan Adams.
And I believe that.
But does God want you to love everyone? Well, first of all, do you believe in God? Do you
yes,
believe in
but I don't necessarily think. I know people say that, Kanye. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from.
If you start thinking about love and start feeling love and thinking about forgiveness, then you can overcome things.
So we talk about we should love like Jesus, and I'm not a Christian, but we should talk about we should love like Jesus, love like God. But according to Christian theology, God loves the sinners. God loves everybody. And so, yes, Hitler is a sinner or was a sinner, but that doesn't mean he's outside of the realm of which we should love people. Because that's what he's saying. I love everybody. And I think before the Slavery Was a Choice video, I had already been used to like knowing like, oh, okay, I hear this headline about Kanye. Let me do my research, or let me just watch the video and see what he means. He probably actually makes sense. I was already like accustomed to that. And so even after, like right after the Slavery Was a Choice thing, I was on campus at that time in college, and I had a Kanye 2020 shirt that someone had bought for me, and I wore it outside because I was like, yo, I know people saw the Slavery Was a Choice thing. I know they're talking about him, but he makes sense. But the reason that was actually kind of a turning point for me was because one, there was a very strong reaction to it, but two, I am an editor. I edit videos for a living. So if someone makes a cut, especially obvious cuts like they were making for TMZ, it's like there's a 2-minute clip that everyone saw. It said 400 years. Slavery was a choice. But you do not understand how many times I watched the 30-minute video of that interview. I think he makes really great points in that. I think he makes great points in the Drink Champs video that got taken down and then put back up because he was talking about Jewish people. I think he made valid points in the Alex Jones interview that's very hard to find. People try to make it seem like he's crazy or out of his head or whatever. But really what he's just doing is presenting different ideas, or not even different ideas, but different ideas that people really aren't used to. And after a certain point though, it's almost like the class clown thing or the class nerd. It's I know it's in high school, there'd be certain times that someone would tell a joke and no one would laugh just because they're just used to someone not being funny. It might be the nerdy kid, but he may make a good joke that if a popular kid said it, everybody would laugh. But people aren't. It's like the symbolism thing. People are used to, oh, this means that. Oh, so I see this nerd dude. I'm gonna expect something corny from him, so the messenger matters, right? That's what I'm saying. So applying that to Kanye, he gets that class clown treatment almost, where it's not what he's saying is a joke, but it's just on the reverse of the nerd thing, the class clown. He gets to laugh every time, but then if he says the answer to the equation, people just assume it's going to be wrong. And I mainly just say that because whether you're a nerd, class clown, somewhere in the middle, everybody has their thing that they represent or that people associate with. And so there'll be certain times that people it's like a function of just humans and like how humans process things. Like naturally, we don't concern ourselves about that electric stove is red. Does it mean that it's hot or not? Like no, we don't question it every single time. We just know based on past experiences. And so that can be very useful. But then when you have someone who like breaks the mold like Kanye and then also has the media like treatment that Kanye does, it can be very frustrating for him, of course, but also for people who understand what he's talking about because it's like, yo, it's really not that crazy. And to be fair, I mean, this doesn't just happen to Kanye, this happens to everybody, where it's like, I'm sure it definitely happens in politics all the time, where it's like, okay, it's not really the message that you're upset with, it's the messenger, and like you just have to deal with that. But the reason Kanye stands out is because his whole thing is like he cares about free speech. Not just free speech, more so like free ideas. Like put your ideas out, say how you feel. Like you could be wrong too. You have the public right to be publicly wrong. And I think that's what bothers me about like the Nazi stuff, the swastika. Like people are saying he's anti-Semitic. He loves Jewish people. He loves all people. And I see this in his interview. I see this like everywhere. But at the same time, you can't get someone to understand if they're not willing to listen. And you can't get someone to listen if they already have, it's like when you're talking to somebody and you can tell they're like already like about to say the response, they're not really listening to you. They already have what they're going to say. They already have what they're bringing to that conversation. They're just like, they're just in it for the sport almost. And so how do we get to a point where in the realm of like free speech and hearing people's opinions, it's not that we just need to be able to express opinions, it's that we need to be able to engage with the opinions. Literally yesterday, these last couple of days, I've been watching this guy, I forget what his name is. He's like anti-Semitic. He doesn't believe that black people are as likely to go to heaven. All this like far right stuff. But I'm watching these interviews of this guy, I'm like getting addicted to it. Because I was like, not because I believe in like anti-Semitism or like the stuff he was saying about black people. I respect people who are like internally logical. Like I might not agree with your conclusion, but I see how you got there because he stands on business. Honestly, he just has all these views. Like he was saying, he's fine with genocide because genocide happens in the Bible. He's talking about the curse of Ham and how that means that black people are less likely to go to heaven.
If you believe that Hitler did kill millions of Jews, would you have a problem with that?
I don't believe that he did.
If he did, would you have a problem with it?
I don't have a problem with genocide per se, and I can't as a Christian, because God commanded it in the Old Testament of the Canaanites.
Hitler was right!
It's a message not unlike the neo-Nazis we've confronted on Nashville streets, or even members of the Ku Klux Klan who once operated in the backwoods of the Old South. What's the difference between you and an uneducated guy in a white robe and hood?
Well, I would object to say that those men were necessarily uneducated. There were many members of the KKK who were certainly quite educated.
The fringe guy like Corey Mahler, what he ends up doing is creating space for the slightly less radical people to push their radicalism and have it look normal by comparison, thus normalizing their arguments.
But it's like, as someone who's not Christian and like has done a lot of research on like the Bible, I understand it's like, because he's someone who does believe in the Bible, I can understand where he's coming. I understand how we got to that conclusion. That's why I respect internal logic. That's just like a tangent. What I'm saying is, a lot of people would say to him, okay, so you're a Nazi sympathizer, you're anti-Semitic, you should not be platformed. You should not have a right to say how you feel, to say what you think. And for real, I'm just as passionate about free speech as Kanye is. I'm just as passionate about us being able to like have our ideas out there as Kanye is, because America is the land of the free, the brave, but especially it's a land of capitalism. In capitalism, we need to apply the concept of capitalism to like free speech or like free ideas. Like the way that we get to Nazi Germany is not by saying, oh, everyone has the right to say everything, blah blah blah. The way we get to Nazi Germany is by saying there's only like one right way of thinking, or more broadly, there's one like range of way to think, but you cannot think outside of that. Because when the Germans did like the Kristallnacht or whatever, and they burned those Jewish books, what they were saying was, you do not have a right to opinion. You don't have a right to say how you feel because you're Jewish. And that's a different circumstance, but okay, if you're censoring people, if you're saying what you can and cannot say, who are you more like? The Nazi Germany or the resistance? And so the way that applies to capitalism is, it's not about, oh, some like force or some government saying, this is what you should be able to say, this is what you... No, it's about it's just like we have good products, and the best products like went out and the market works as a force that helps us. I know it sounds like a capitalist, but just like that happens, on this, the same thing applies to ideas. Let the good ideas play out. I know it can be hard to like believe in humanity sometimes and believe that like most people are not bad. Most people have like good intentions. Like if you have that like faith and that understanding, then you get to the point where you're like, okay, yes, people will get their like little Nazi quotes on Twitter. People will like get their far right views, far left views, whatever, get very extreme. But we have to let people speak for themselves so that they let the ideas win out. I don't know if you ever watched like a radio show where like someone gets cut off all the time. Like it might be like a liberal and a conservative, and every time the liberal talks, like the conservatives like just cut them off. Like, oh, we don't even want to hear you speak. Like that can be very annoying because it's like, bro, this might be, if it's a conservative show, we already know how you think as a conservative man. What I want to hear is how this person on the other side of the lane, I want to hear how they think. I want to hear and let me as a viewer decide what is valid, what is not valid, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But if you could bring them onto your show and say and just talk over them the whole time, then it just doesn't work. And I was thinking about this recently. I think like just in general, we need to not just give people benefit of the doubt, but it's almost like how you approach the debate. If you like say you're going to debate about is Jesus God, and before that debate, you don't end up defining, okay, what does Jesus mean? What do we mean by Jesus? And what do we mean by God? Like, if you don't define that first, then you could have some type of discussion that just really doesn't go anywhere because you haven't agreed on like a joint definition. In that same way, I think we need to like start every like disagreement with like the idea that in some sense, you are not an evil person. Like, I think because we're trained to be red versus blue or like white versus orange, whatever. I don't know what orange is, but I just didn't want to say black. But we're trained to see the world like Star Wars almost, where it's like the bad guys wear black and then the good guys, like their team is obvious. But really, we're all Luke Skywalker. We're all Anakin Skywalker. We're all everybody. Meaning, there are negative aspects of everybody. There are like very condemnable like aspects of everyone. There are like very lovable, amazing aspects of everyone. Is it the same proportion for everything? No. And honestly, it's not even about like the importance of like everyone having their own perspective, or the fact that not everyone's as bad as they seem just because they play for a different like political team or spiritual, religious team, whatever. It's not just about that idea. It's more so, it's about the idea of being productive and like having like a constructive argument or like a constructive and productive debate. Like if we're spending the time like going at each other or coming up with arguments that are really just based in, one, not listening to each other, but two, having preconceived notions of what the other person means, but three, especially if at the bottom of like the way you're treating somebody and the way you're interacting with them is this underlying notion that they're just like a bad person, or like they have bad intentions, that's going to undermine your ability to like understand where someone's coming from, their logical process, their emotional process. It's just going to be hard to come to a point of understanding. And I don't think it's about being able to agree to disagree, because I don't like debates that end in that way. I don't think it's about compromise either. I think both parties should be able to use each other to think, okay, what is this person saying that's valid? What is this person saying that's not valid? And just like the radio show thing, like we should be able to like listen to Nazi sympathizers or I don't know, people who want to bring back Jim Crow, and still be able to be like, okay, yeah, I have no way that I could possibly agree with that, like, solution that they should drink from different water fountains. But at the same time, yeah, he's making valid points about black on black crime or black crime, whatever. Because then we're like grounded in reason. There's a time for emotion, there's time for like feeling, but when it comes to debate and like getting the best idea out of society, that is a time for reason. And the reason why it's so important to apply the concept of capitalism, like where the best, thing wins out, to ideas, is because we as human beings are social creatures. We dialogue with each other, we interact with each other, like we are able to use communication to express ideas and like make a better world. And if we're not able to like freely communicate in the first place, then how do we make a better world? Like we're limiting our ideas, we're limiting our possibilities because we're not even able to talk about like how we actually think. And one of Kanye's main things is like, yo, just say how you feel, right or wrong. Because right or wrong is subjective, of course, anyway. But right or wrong, like, who's to say that you shouldn't say wrong ideas? Like, I think there's this idea that, something can be so, or a concept can be so poisonous, can be so dangerous that shouldn't even be like let out. But it's like telling a kid, yo, don't cuss, or like don't say anything about like whatever. Like the first thing you want to do is like go against that. And so the way you get rid of like alt-right stuff, the way you get rid of like extreme views isn't by saying you're not allowed to have these extreme views. People are just gonna want to do it anyway, or like even more. Like you're just gonna fuel that. They're gonna think they're even more right, because when people get their idea opposed for the sake of like, not even for like legitimate reasons, but just because like, no, you just shouldn't be able to say that. Like, do you really think like the Nazi sympathizers are going to be like, oh, well, I can't say that. Oh, I just shouldn't think that then. Like, it's just going to fuel it even more. And so the best thing you can do is just have a Nazi sympathizer on your podcast or whatever, or on the platform, and let him expose himself for being wrong. For the most part, people aren't Nazi sympathizers. They're not going to agree with it. So why not just let the ideas be? Let the ideas destroy themselves. And I definitely relate to Ye in a lot of ways, especially the way that he's received. Because I've made my sentences public about like stuff like transgender people or transgenderism and like politics and Islam, because I'm Islamophobic. Like I've made my stances on these things very clear, but at the same time, I've had people reach out to me like, you should not platform yourself like that, or you should not like put that on your platform. You should not like let those ideas be free, essentially. And again, it's the one thing to say, oh, I'm wrong, I disagree with this. Like I don't have that same conclusion as you, but it's one thing to just like remove it. And I think an alternate version of that is when people like unfollow people or like try to cancel people, like just or disengage with them because like, oh, so there's a Trump supporter on my feed. I don't want to follow them. I don't want to see them at all anymore. But then you're just going to not come across the ideas. And now I'm getting to more of a basic take, so I'm going to like wrap it up. But I don't know, I just always been passionate about discourse. And what I respect about Ye is that he's willing to sacrifice, like people will see him as like very megalomaniac and like selfish, but at the same time, what other billionaire do you know that's willing to sacrifice his money, to sacrifice like because he's been like debanked a couple of times. Who's willing to sacrifice his image just for like free speech, for people to be able to express themselves? I can understand like Elon Musk and how he's not as free speech as he really should be. Like I understand why he puts limitations on that because he's a businessman. But Kanye or Ye is an artist. He is an artist. Like Ye said before, artists are supposed to be able to like that freedom that we had as children, where we just try anything, that artists are supposed to be 5 years old, not in like behavior in terms of like how they interact with you, but in terms of exploring the imaginary. Artists are supposed to do that. And it's just like the comedians thing. We can't put limits on comedians. We can say, it's just capitalism again. If something's not funny, if something's not good, people will not come to the show. It's fine. But to say, oh, someone doesn't have the right to make a joke because blah, 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 that's where we're getting away from art. Art is about expression. And expression isn't about, oh, this is right to be expressed. This is not. No, expression is about expression. And so that's what I'm saying. Express how you feel. Don't worry. I'm not saying we shouldn't worry about like have any concern, because we don't need everybody, embracing their inner 5-year-old. That's how we need designated artists. That's how we need different designated people to be like, yo, I'm gonna explore it's almost like government. Like, we can't all be running the thinking about all these different policies. We gotta do our jobs as farmers, as painters, as bartenders. We gotta do our own thing. And so, just like the government has their responsibility, we need to endow artists with the responsibility of act like a 5-year-old, or like express yourself like a 5-year-old, in terms of there is no limits on what you can, not just what you can say, but what you can be, what you can like express. And yes, some of that will come with some negative stuff. It has to be, there's no positive without the negative. There's no negative without the positive. So naturally that's going to happen. But we just have to have, in my opinion, the faith and like the belief that in humanity, to the point where like, well, even if these views are expressed, the good will like play out. And one more thing I want to say about like the whole context thing, because or like the Nazi, or like the anti-Semitism thing that's like very current with Ye right now. My problem is that this is obviously a case of you guys it's not that you don't like the message, it's that you don't like the messenger, or that you're used to. It's like the class clown thing. He's usually being presented a certain way, so you're used to that presentation, and so you've already like come with these like preconceived notions. Because just like, I'm like I don't identify as conservative, but I'm on the right politically. I just don't like the term conservative for different reasons. But I have seen so much content that about like Palestine, and how Jewish people in Israel like essentially run the world, or like at least run American government. Okay, so you're saying Israel runs the American government, but American government is essentially who runs the world. So if Israel controls the U.S. government, then Israel controls the world. Or if you say AIPAC controls U.S. government, then AIPAC is who controls the world. Okay, how is that different from Kanye saying, oh, it's the Jewish media? How is that different from him saying there's 400 billionaires and 150 are Jewish, even though they're less than 1% of the population? How is that different? So what I'm saying is, if we can get past the idea of, oh, this guy is this, he is this, so he must have bad intentions. He is not what I identify as, so he cannot be right. That is not how we get to like higher concepts. And we are like social creatures, like I said, and our power, we're not stronger than apes. We're not faster than cheetahs, but we have like, through social communication, through ideas, through the abstract, we're able to be the top species. We can't do what I don't know what a giraffe does, but we can't do what a giraffe does. Or maybe going back to the gorilla is a better example. But we have power when we come together, and we don't need everybody to be on the same page. We don't need to all agree about everything, but we need to bounce off of each other like electrons and make each other better. And better through arguments, better through rationale, better through emotion as well. But in terms of ideas, the idea is abstract. It has to be emotional in a sense, but more so logical, more so rational. And the way we need more hands on deck, including bring the Nazi sympathizers in. And I know that goes against what a lot of people believe, but it's just how I feel. And this is in the spirit of, say how you feel, get the word out there. We have a lot of content creators, but we have a lot as well of people who are afraid, even if they make content, they're afraid to really express how they feel, because they might get taken down by YouTube. They might lose income. They might lose whatever. But we have to be able to put that fear away and just embrace just ideas, embrace new ideas, embrace different ideas, and specifically embrace the idea that man over there who identifies different than me is evil. And that's why I love the swastika.